Hello, you are here for Leaving the Toxic Educational System in the U.S. to Teach Abroad. So, welcome. If you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, and more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. So, welcome to the conversation today. I'm going to turn it over to my guest in a moment. Please forgive the sound. I have a cold. So hopefully it's not too distracting for you. So again, welcome to the conversation where we're really going to talk about the experiences of the educational system within the US and talk about options. Because again, I want Black women to know that we have options, not to feel like we're stuck in any type of a job. And so again, let's broaden our horizons and really explore possible options. So I'm going to turn it over to my guest for her to introduce herself, and we're going to get right into the conversation. So if you can introduce yourself, Javana.
Yeah, my name is Javonna MaeRhys, and I am a former teacher, former principal with 20 years of experience who left her six-figure job and sold her house and moved her family to the island of Borneo, where I'm back in the classroom teaching in public school. And I am also helping other teachers broaden their horizons and see that there are options across the world where you can teach and feel physically safe, where you don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and you can reignite that passion for teaching.
Yes, so that imports the physical safety, but also the psychological safety. So as we talk about your experiences, can you talk a little bit about the common experiences that many Black women who are teachers, school administrators, what are some of the experiences that they encounter in the school system in the US?
Well, some of the things that they encounter in the school system, specifically as a Black woman, in the classroom, you will encounter, depending on where you are, you'll encounter racial slurs sometimes, having to deal with walking students through what language they can or cannot use, and then all of the documentation and conversations with parents and admin that come with those conversations. But I think overall, in general, depending on what type of school district you're in, you can face a sense of feeling othered. If you're in a predominantly Black or a diverse district, it's not so much. But if you're working in suburban districts, you run into that thing where people have certain expectations of you based on stereotypes about Black people. And if you aren't fitting inside of their box, then they don't quite know how to take you. So, for example, expecting to always be funny, expecting to be that sassy friend, or always being ready to dance and sing, or always, the having a pep rally and being expected to perform in the pep rally because you, of course, should be able to dance and all of that stuff. So it's those little microaggressions that you face a lot from both students and from staff and administration.
So the racial slurs, the othered, feeling like you're on performance, right? What about, can you speak also in terms of the workload and the expectations for teachers and school administrators as well?
Yeah, so things have changed. Being a teacher, as other teachers know, is a tough job because you care about it. You're passionate. You want to see your kids succeed. But after COVID, things got exponentially more difficult because so many students, well, all of the students, they were at home. And so they lost a year of that socialization, a year of doing school. And so when they came back, the workload was intensified because we had to implement a lot of interventions to help support kids who were behind. And if you read the news, you've seen tons of stories about the learning loss that happened over COVID. And so helping kids catch up increased the workload for teachers, and it increased the workload for administrators because, as a principal, which was my last job, you're responsible for test scores. And if your test scores aren't at a certain level, then that falls on you. And then you've got to basically do interventions for your teachers so they can do interventions for the students, and so on and so forth. And so it's a large workload. And as principal, in addition to being the instructional leader of the building, you're also having to deal with behaviors of students. So you have assistant principals who typically deal with, the front end of the discipline, unless it's something large, but parents are able to appeal decisions. And so that comes to the principal. So you're having appeal meetings, you are speaking to attorneys, you are speaking to board members, you're having to go to board meetings. So as a principal, you've got the day job, and then you've got evening board meetings, once or twice a month. You're at all the football games, you're at, all of the different events because you're the face of the school, and you've got to do, PR and all of that stuff. So it's a pretty heavy workload. And that's not even accounting for talking to police or detectives when, behaviors of that level come up.
Yeah. So how does that show up in terms of work-life balance, in terms of what you've experienced, as well as your former colleagues when you're working in the U.S.?
Well, I think for back in the U.S., it kind of manifests as you're living for that next break. And many people say, oh, teachers are off in the summer, they shouldn't be complaining, they get paid in the summer. Well, teachers have a yearly salary. And so that salary is broken up over the summer. It's not like, they're just getting a free 2 months.
Right.
But then also they are earning that time off to rejuvenate so they can be there for people's children when the time comes. But in addition to that, it's, you're living for the summer, you're trying to get in little vacations where you can, you're trying to do little things to help with your stress, because all teachers, they realize the load that they have, and they realize that they need work-life balance, and they're trying all of these different ways to feel less stress, and you can't just squeeze it in. And the way that manifested for me was I was just always tired. And so in terms of trying to have a work-life balance, when it was time for life and not work, I didn't have the energy to participate. All I wanted to do was come home and sit on the couch, maybe have a glass of wine or, something to de-stress. And being where I am right now, it's not an issue because I have the way that the system is structured here. It's not a burden. It's been a joy for me to be back in the classroom and to be really engaged with the educational process. And so, I'm able to have the energy here to interact, to go out with friends, to host parties, to hike in the jungle and all of that stuff. So it's been amazing.
Yeah. So you're able to shift out the extraneous issues outside of the necessarily job, right? So you as a teacher, as a principal, you have certain responsibilities, and you're able to factor out all those other things so you can enjoy the work and get to the work. So Javana, you talked about feeling like emotionally depleted when you were working in the U.S. system. And I'm wondering, can you speak a little bit more in terms of the emotional challenges in relation to stress and burnout for you and for other Black women that you've worked with?
Yeah, so there's the stress that comes and the emotional distress that comes from the children. And it comes from feeling for the children, because if you're in education, for the most part, you're there because you love kids.
Right.
And so there's the emotional part of wanting to see them succeed, knowing all the things that some of them bring to the table in terms of what's going on in their households that may be causing some of the behaviors or causing them not to achieve. And so you are trying to come up with not just interventions for them academically, but things, their lights are out. You've got to go talk to the counselor and come up with a plan to help them. They don't have any food at home. And so you're dealing with those things as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of the emotional stress as dealing with other adults, it's again, depending where you are, it is dealing with parents being angry at you for things that their children are doing or not doing. And it is, you kind of learn how to, as a principal, if you're going to be successful, you have to learn how to have tough conversations, with your teachers and tough conversations with parents. So when you've got to call them and tell them that their child has been arrested at school.
Wow.
When you have to call them and tell them your child was having sex in the bathroom.
Wow.
So you've got to be able to have those conversations, and those are their babies. And so their first instinct is to, deny and to be angry at you. And so you've got to deal with their emotional fallout. And you have to be able to stay centered in yourself and to not take it personally and to understand what that is. But even if you could do that, it takes a toll, having to deal with negativity. And that's what you do as an administrator. Many administrators say that the happiest time they have is when they can steal away and go into a teacher's classroom and watch some learning take place, because the majority of their day is spent, feeling like a police officer or feeling like a DA, because there's so many things like that they have to deal with.
Yeah, very stressful, high stakes issues, like simultaneously, that you're trying to juggle, right? So, Javana, can you talk to us about, because when I talk on my YouTube channel and I've shared my journey of leaving a toxic job, and I work for a school district, I talked to you about this before. So I used to work for the second largest school district in the nation, and I had no idea how treacherous school districts could be. I had no idea until you actually work for one. I couldn't believe it. And not only my experiences, but hearing the experience of so many Black women around the world who work in school districts, and they talk about how treacherous it can be. And when I talk about my progression of leaving a toxic job, I'm very clear that generally I just wake up one day and say, I'm out of here, right? It's generally a progression. So can you share with the audience, what was your progression of, the things that just kind of building up to the point where you said, I need to pivot and get out of here? What was your progression?
Well, first, I, had the travel bug because I grew up in a military family. So we moved around quite a bit throughout the United States, and we lived in Germany for a bit. I went to school there. And so part of me always knew that I eventually wanted to move abroad, live abroad. And when I started teaching, 20 years ago, I got married a few years into my teaching career. And so my partner at the time wasn't interested in leaving the country. And then once I got divorced and it was just me and my son, I thought, okay, well, maybe now is the time for me to move abroad. And so I started looking at opportunities, but then almost immediately I was promoted and I got my first administration job as an assistant principal. And so you start making more money, you start getting more responsibilities, those, golden handcuffs come on.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
And so, you feel like you can't leave because you've got this way of life that's going. And then also, just after the divorce, I was in survival mode. And so you're trying to make sure that you're okay, make sure your son, my son is okay. And, just Maslow's hierarchy, right? Am I physically safe? Do I have clothing? And so several years into administration, all the while, I'm still thinking about moving abroad. I'm actually teaching online. I'm teaching online to students in China. And then I realized I wanted to teach adults. And so I was working with adults all over the world who wanted to increase their job prospects. And so the final year of my administration, the last year was really tough. We had a lot of instances with just drugs, with fights, with, all kinds of things. I had been physically assaulted. I was punched in the stomach, trying to break up a fight. There was one instance where there was like a 7-boy brawl in a hallway that I was trying to break up, and the kids had the hallway blocked because they were all trying to film it. So my assistant principal couldn't get in. And so it was like me and another teacher, and I had to like wrestle hold the kid and try to hold him on the ground, so it was like, and several things like that had happened. And I remember in the last couple of years being like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is why I got an education. Like, I'm not
what I signed up for. Yeah.
this is not why I got into education, and there are some people who live for that. It's exciting to them. Usually it's men. They love doing the investigation, and they love catching kick. Like, I didn't come here for this,
Yeah.
And so after, having all of those things happen, I had gotten remarried, and my husband and I, we had plans to move abroad after my son graduated or when I hit retirement, which was in 10 years. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to hold on. I was so stressed. I had an eye twitch that came every year. I was like, okay, I'm just going to pat down this eye twitch, and we're just going to keep it moving until I hit retirement or until my son graduates.
I'm sorry. Wait, I have to pause, right? I want the audience to listen to this. And I think when we talk about our experiences after the fact, we can hear how much stress we were under and how our bodies were just giving out and saying, this is too much. But we keep trying to persevere. We keep saying, oh, it's not that bad. I can make it. I can make it 10 more years, 10 more years of eye twitches, right? And all these other things. But I think a lot of Black women have the same experience. So I love that you shared that. So all these things are happening. You talk to your husband at a certain point, though. But so as these things were happening, you kept saying, okay, I can make it. I can make it. When did you realize I can't make it, or I don't want to make it? This is not what I want.
I am, stubborn. I have this, I have a confidence in myself that I can push through things, that I can, do anything. And so if something is not working, I just have to look at it a different way. I just have to try something different. And so all throughout this time, I would have these moments where I thought, I don't want to do this, or I'm not happy doing this. And then I would think, okay, but you've built this life, you've bought a house, you're making good money, you've got the good job. And, and also as a principal and in the place that I was in, I was one of only a few, even Black administrators in the district. And I was, the only the high school Black principal. And so I would often have people, pull me aside and say, I'm so glad that you're here. Or I'm so
responsibility glad. Almost.
Yeah. So you see, you've got people who are looking to you. You've got even students, they're excited to see you. And at the high school level, they'll tell you, like, I'm so glad to see, a Black woman. And, they'll tell you that. And so you've got all of those things swirling: the money, the responsibility, you went to school for this, and you've got several degrees and certifications for this and all this time. And so, I really, the point when I knew I had to go, it came after one of those instances where the police were involved.
Wow.
And, having a student who had to be in an office with time to calm down because she was screaming that she can't go back. Wow. This was a student who had, several issues. She'd been institutionalized, she'd been arrested, and this child was just wailing about not going back. And it, broke my heart to hear just the pain and the suffering. And I realized that every day, just about, I was just bombarded with sadness and negativity and stress. And you can't just walk out the door and shake that off.
Exactly. So you were experiencing vicarious traumatization. So the kids were experiencing trauma, they were expressing it, they were all these other things. And then you are the one trying to stabilize. But of course, that trauma comes off on you too. And you can't just shake it off once the end of the workday is over. So it's like an accumulation of all that vicarious traumatization and the work demands and dealing with issues with parents and police and your physical safety and all those other things. So how did it get to the point, though, that you said enough's enough? Like, was there a pivotal moment where it was like, I'm done? Like, just that Fannie Lou Hamer moment. I'm sick and tired. I've been sick and tired. I'm done. So what was that? What happened?
Honestly, Honestly, it was a conversation. Honestly, it was a conversation with my husband.
Okay.
And I think it was a feeling because, again, as I said, I had been in survival mode for so long.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was pushing through things because I felt like I had to.
Yeah.
And it was a conversation where it finally clicked with me that, I have a partner that I feel safe with
Mm-hmm.
and that I can kind of let go of some of um, that need to be the one who
Yeah.
does everything.
Yeah.
And through that conversation, I realized that the world was not going to fall apart if I walked away from this job, that my
Yeah.
world would actually start to bloom and start to grow if I would let go of this thing that was weighing me down.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like you had an honest conversation with your partner. And I think it's really important in terms of looking at the circle of support. Who do we have around us? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the people around us can be projecting their fears onto us and tell us to stay. And so that's why it's so important for us to really pay attention to how we're being impacted, being honest with ourselves, and being able to talk to someone honestly who can say, you know what, I get it. This is not healthy for you. Let's look at options. If we don't have those people, and if we continue to tell our issues, our problems to people who don't get it, they may tell us to stay in situations that continue to harm us. And so that's why it's so important to look at the circle. You also said something, Javana, that I really resonated with. I did like this when you said that, but you said that you're stubborn. And I think a lot of Black women who might be watching this right now, I would say not stubborn. I think that we're strong-willed and we're
Mm-hmm.
very confident in terms of our abilities. And we have really bought into the social programming that we're strong and we fight and we don't let anybody like run us out of a situation, especially a so-called good situation, a so-called good job. And then we're just going to
Mm-hmm.
fight and make it through. But what you're saying, Javana, and what I've said on my videos also is that it gets to a certain point. Yes, we are strong, but also recognize certain situations are harming us. So being okay with saying, this is not a sign of weakness, and I'm saying this situation is harming me. And my friend Colette Elizabeth says, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you did. So can you also speak a little bit to Javana about, because you talked about parents, you talked about police involvement, you talked about breaking up fights, you talked about different issues, right? Can you talk about the culture within the US educational system? What is the culture that is also not healthy for teachers and school administrators as well?
The culture is one that feels like, and teachers are used to being observed, right? They have to be observed by their administrators, but teachers are being observed by people outside of the school. And so teachers feel like they are in a bubble. It is difficult to come to school as your authentic self,
Mm,
which is also very stressful
mhm,
because you're constantly being held to a particular standard,
mm,
a standard of perfection, a
mhm,
standard of from the people outside of your building.
mhm,
And so if you say something, or even if you don't say something, the kids can go home and say, do you know what my teacher said today? And then
mm,
you've got parents contacting administrators demanding that
mm,
something be done about,
mhm,
your student.
mhm.
Um, and then from central administration as principal, when they go directly to the superintendent, and then they
Wow.
bump it back down to me. And now I've got to have, these conversations and try to smooth these things over because students have misrepresented what has happened in the classroom. Now, of course, there are
Mm,
some bad actors everywhere, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
sometimes the kids are telling the truth and we
mhm.
investigate that. But sometimes there are things that are said in class that are completely misconstrued. And
Wow.
it's teachers feel like they are just, under a microscope and like they can't
Mhm,
say anything. They
mhm.
can't do anything. They have to be so careful. And
Yeah.
that's reflected at, the school board level. You've got a lot of politics coming into, schools via the school board, people having their own personal agendas and then putting that within the schools. One of the stressful things I didn't even mention was, of course, Texas loves their guns. And the school district that I was in, the final year that I left, the school board had voted to have a secret person on campus who could have a gun, just in case somebody showed up. There was one person on each campus who could have a gun.
Wow.
And they went through training.
Wow.
I'm not sure about, what the level of training was, but how do you train someone who got into education to then take a gun and potentially shoot a kid? Because it's likely going to be a kid who comes with a gun. Wow. And then are you prepared for the psychological fallout if they actually kill someone? If they shoot the wrong person? There were just so many questions that I had, and I just thought that was an awful idea, but that's where we were.
Yeah.
And so that's the culture. That it's a culture of fear, quite honestly. It's I've been in districts where attorneys meet with administrators so that they can talk to their teachers about how they show up on Facebook, because they can't show up with a glass of wine on their own time, because in Texas, you've got the morality clauses in your teaching contract that you have to present a certain way to the community. And so it's just sometimes it can be a culture of fear.
Yeah. So in addition to the culture of fear, I remember when I used to work for the school district, a lot of teachers, the morale was really bad, right? So it was the stress, it was dealing with the kids, it was feel like they weren't getting supported from administration, it was teaching to the tests, all of that in terms of morale. So when you talked about, okay, all these things happen, you talked to your husband, how did you actually pivot? Because I think Black women might be watching right now and they're like, what? How do I do that? How were you able to pivot? So that was that last year, you talked to your husband. What were the steps that you took to actually pivot something different?
Well, for me, my resume stays ready. My motto is stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And so my resume and cover letter is always ready to go. And so when I felt like it was time, I just got online. And I already knew the places to go because, again, I had been teaching online. I kind of had a toe in that world already. And so I started putting my resume out there after I kind of looked at where I wanted to go. Okay. And so I knew that there were certain places in the world I wanted to go, certain places I didn't want to go. I knew that packages are typically better in Asia or the Middle East. And so I was focusing on those areas. And so I just started putting out the resume, and then I started doing the interviews. And that's really, when I made the decision, which is how I tend to do things, when I make the decision, it's go time.
Right. Like forward movement, right? We're not stopping. So you had your resume ready, you got it ready, and you start just putting it out there and you start getting interviews. So how soon was it from that moment until you were able to pivot? And tell us a little bit more in terms of where you are and what you're doing now.
It took me about from applying to getting the position about 6 months.
Okay.
About 6 months. And so I, did all the interviews, accepted the position. Then once you're moving abroad, you've got to, start the visa process, and you've got all your documents. And, for me, some people, they choose to rent out their house, of course, when they move abroad. I wanted to sell the house, pay off some debt, do those types of things, have some money in the bank. And I was lucky enough to have that asset to do that. And so then it's, where's my son going to go to school, sending paperwork to the international school so that he can get enrolled. It is, again, figuring out what I'm going to store. It's having several garage sales to get rid of stuff because, again, I got a house and I got all this stuff. It is, for me, building community before I get to the place. And so I have joined some expat groups in the country and started talking to people. In fact, I FaceTime with someone before I ever got there. So I had a friend when I landed. And now that I'm here, it looks like I'm teaching Monday. We have a split week here. And so I teach Monday through Thursday, off on Friday, and then I work Saturday and off on Sunday.
Okay.
And so it is, a short work day, and it is time for me to be with my family, quite honestly. So, I mean, the pivot was shedding so many things, shedding the house, shedding the job, shedding financial debt, spending time with as many people as possible face to face before I went, lots of packing. And then just getting here and getting settled. And luckily, it's, one of the things that I help women with who do decide that they want to go abroad is I help them really look at the contract and the package that they're getting, because different schools offer so many different things, and you want to have a package that's going to take care of you. And I was really diligent in choosing a place that was going to do that.
Awesome. So we're going to talk a lot more a little later about how you can help Black women who might want to pivot. So Javana, how would they even start though? Like, was there a service that you went through in terms of submitting your resume to, or how did you even start? Like, how did you know where to even send the resume to?
There are several websites that specialize in teaching abroad. So there's teachaway.com, there's teachingnomad.com. Those are either free or low cost. And then there are some more expensive ones. Search Associates is one of them, and I believe their fee is about $250 for the year. But with that, you get a database of schools that pay to be in their database. And so you have all of the information that you need to make a decision, including what are they paying? What is the length of the contract? Is there an age limit for this? Do they allow same-sex partners in the country? Is it a Muslim country or another country that, so do they pay for your kids to go to the international school? Do they allow, so everything that you need is within that database. And so I definitely joined that and found it to be very much worth it. And so once you sign up and you get your resume up and you get your cover letter up, it's a matter of just checking to see what the job options are and just blocking time to check and look at those emails, because they send you emails with, these jobs might fit you, or these are the newest jobs. And if it's a place that you want to go, then you apply.
So did I have the names right on the screen? So teachaway.com, teachnomad.com, and searchassociates.com?
Teaching Nomad.
Teaching Nomad. Okay. Let me replace that. Okay. So it seems pretty seamless though. I mean, once you find the organizations, right? And put your stuff out there. Okay. So it's good again in terms of different options. So Javana, did you experience any fears in relation to the pivot? Any fears in this process of leaving the US, teaching and moving abroad? Any fears?
I think for me, the fears were all financial related. I was very, much looking at the finance piece of it, because again, I was making a 6-figure income and moving back to being in the classroom, because I wanted to be in the classroom. Because I wanted to have that experience and then decide, do I want to be in charge of a building again? Do I want that, or do I just, want to not? And so finances were the biggest concern for me, just making sure that, I was going to be okay, or we were going to be okay financially, and be able to save money, because so many people who move abroad, you might be making a smaller salary, but with all of the other benefits that you get, you're actually able to save money. And so that was something that I was looking at as well. So that was my biggest concern. And I think, I hear a lot of people say they're concerned about, are there people there who look like me? Are there, is there community? Am I going to find community? And I think for me, and I attribute this to growing up military, I find community wherever I am, because I'm so used to being in different places where I may be one of the few. And so for me, it's always been, you can not open up and reach out, or you can, And it kind of goes back to that confidence. You know, it's like, how can they not like me?
Oh,
I mean,
okay. How can they not like me? I'm good, right? I'm amazing. How can you not like me? So what about, were there other people around? So it sounds like your husband was supportive. What about other people within your circle? Were they supportive? Did they have any fears? Did they project their fears onto you? And if so, how did you go through that?
Well, my family didn't project fears on me because, you know, my parents they understand, they got it. My mom did drop an F-bomb when I told her, and then she recovered and she was like, okay, all right, where's this place? And then she starts looking and researching, and she was fine. Everyone else, I kept hearing, you're so brave. I could never, you know, and so it was kind of like, you know, them sharing how they felt. I only had one person who was just really like, oh, you're going to a Muslim country? How is that going to be? Are you going to have to cover your hair?
Like a wet blanket.
Yeah. So just, and, you know, for that person, I just said, I feel fine. No, I'm not going to have to cover my hair. And I'm looking forward to learning about a new culture. And I'm also looking forward to not worrying about my son kicking a ball in someone's yard and getting shot for it.
That part, safety takes over everything, right?
Yeah.
And in addition to feeling safer in that environment, right? You talked about a shorter work day. So what are your work hours?
So my work hours, Monday through Wednesday, I'm there from 7 to 2. And on Thursday and Saturday, I leave at 12:30. And so within that time, like in the US, teachers are teaching 7 or 8 classes, 50 minutes each, unless they're on a block schedule. And they get lunch, 30-minute lunch, and then they have one conference period. For me, on those days that I'm teaching, I teach no more than 3 50-minute classes. And the rest of the time is planning time.
Oh, great. So no need to take work home or anything like that.
Nope, no need to take work home or anything like that. Yeah.
That's
so
great.
I have plenty of time to lesson plan, to research, to learn, to increase my craft. They have, you know, so much access to professional learning. We have a project that we do each year, and this year it is coaching. So I'm already a coach, and so I'm kind of helping to facilitate things from time to time, but they're teaching teachers how to coach and putting them in coaching groups so that they can help each other improve their craft through coaching.
What a concept. Support, right? And doing your job. Okay. And talk a little bit too in terms of how different is your work experience like now? So you talked about the workload is less. You talked about the hours, the days of the week, all this stuff, no taking work home. What are some other ways? Like we talked before about having to break up fights and police. So is that something that's an issue, like active shooter drills and having people on campus with a gun? You know, what is the school culture like there?
No, well, first of all, here you can't have a gun, so there's that. You know, the military, police, okay, but normal people cannot have guns, so that's not a thing. And when I walk in to school, it is, first of all, the campus is lovely. There's a koi pond on the way into the front office that I make sure I walk by every day because it's so serene. And it is kids greeting you. You know, back home, kids were on their phones. You know, nobody's on their phone, looking at their phone with their earbuds in, and people actually speak to you. And so the kids are, good morning, teacher. Good morning, miss. As I walk through the hallways, it's a chorus of that. And if I'm holding something, it's, you know, kids will run you down in the hallway. Teacher, can I carry your bag? And so, you know, they're carrying your stuff because I have to walk up a lot of stairs. There's lots of stairs in this building. And so they'll carry your stuff upstairs for you. When I walk into class, they all stand. I say good morning. They say good morning, teacher. They do a prayer before we begin. I tell them to be seated, and then they are ready to learn.
Okay. So as a Black woman, you're saying that they're not treating you or othering you. You said like you felt othered in the US system. So you're not feeling othered. You're not feeling othered in terms of religion or anything else. You feel very much
No.
accepted and respected
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, everyone here has been, my husband has commented on it as well. We've done several things within the community. We've gone to, there's a sultan here, and they love their sultan. They have lots of celebrations, and they celebrate his birthday. It is a big party, and they have in night markets with food. And my husband, I remember him commenting when we went to a night market, and he said, if we were back home out with all these people, I would be always ready to, just like a low grade readiness for
Yeah.
something to
Yeah.
happen. And I just realized that I don't feel that. Like, I don't feel that here. Like, I feel like I can just relax and not worry about having to protect my family.
Yes, yes, yes. And tell the audience again, where are you and where exactly is it located?
Yeah, I'm in the country of Brunei, which is on the island of Borneo. So we're in Southeast Asia, near the Philippines, Malaysia, that area.
Okay. And because you talked about the climate is different, what about the actual practice of teaching? Are there cultural differences in terms of the actual teaching compared to where you are, compared to where it was in the US?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we follow more of a British system. And so the school that I'm at is actually what they call a science college. The kids there are college bound, and they're focused on passing their O level so they can make sure they get to that next level. So my kids are very, serious about their education. And so the culture, though, is that they have more options. They have not the same classes every day. It's more like a college schedule. Right. So they have several classes, and their schedule is kind of a jigsaw, which I had to get used to because I was used to being in the same place, same time every day. And sometimes I'd show up one place and the kids were like, "Teacher, no, you're supposed to be over here." And so then I would go. But they have more options for after school activities. My son is at an international school, so he's at a school with other expats and some locals. And so he has so many more academic options than he did back home. But then he also has a lot of extracurricular activities. My son is not a sports kid, he's a band kid. And so he's able to still be in the band. And also he added last term, he was in karate, mindfulness, melee enrichment, gymnastics, and this term he's got Minecraft, he has archery, he has just so many things that he didn't have access to before, and just that being around people from across the world. He's got a friend from Scotland, he's got a friend from this place and that place, and so he's getting so much exposure, and he's also not having to deal with the race issues that he faced when he was in school. There was an incident where they had a historical day where the kids could dress up as a historical figure, and someone came to school dressed as Robert E. Lee and said to my son, "My family used to own your family."
Oh, how horrible.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So your son is removed from all the nonsense too. And so he likes it there as well. So for Black women watching this right now, and you have a family, children, husband, you're saying that you left with your family and everybody is doing well. Everybody loves it there. It's been a good adjustment, right? So Javana, if there's a Black woman who's watching this right now, she's either a teacher or an administrator, and she can resonate with anything that you shared today, what words of wisdom would you offer her if she feels stuck? So today's Sunday. So tomorrow, she's trying to get ready. So she's probably experiencing Sunday scaries or that dread of going back to the job tomorrow. So what words of wisdom can you offer to a Black woman teacher or an administrator who's watching this conversation right now?
My words of wisdom would be to start listening to that voice in you that is telling you that something needs to change. I find some silence, find your journal, if it's meditation, whatever your mindfulness practice is, and sit with listening to that voice, because so many times we feel, or there's a voice that says, "This is not right. This is not for me. I can't do this anymore." And we push it down, like we stuff it down.
Yeah.
Stop stuffing down that voice. That voice is trying to save your life. That voice
Mm.
is trying to help you live your life, save your life,
Yeah.
fulfill your desires. And so I would say start listening to that voice.
Yes, yes, yes. I appreciate that, Javana, because, you know, I've resigned over a year ago, but sometimes people contact me from the district and they tell me they're watching me. People I know, people I don't know, or I might just see them out and about. And what I find to be very troubling is that a lot of Black women, including a lot of Black women administrators, will say to me, it's not any better. In fact, it's worse. However, I have 2 more years. I have 5 more years to retirement. I'm gonna wait till my child graduates from high school or college. What would you specifically say about to those women who are saying that?
Well, I would say several things. I would say no one is promised tomorrow.
Mm,
And I would say that people are watching you. People who you care about are watching you. Your
mhm,
children are watching you, and you are
mhm,
teaching them how to be in their work environment.
mhm,
And is the example that you're setting of being overworked, being overwhelmed, being tired, and pushing through and hanging on to a job that is physically and emotionally draining you, is that
mhm,
the example that you want to set for your kids?
mm.
That is the dream,
Yeah,
that is what adulthood is. And I don't think any parent wants that for their kid, but they're
yeah,
watching you. Even if they're acting like they're not, they are watching you, and what
yeah.
you do speaks to what they think should be done.
So modeling behavior is very
Mhm.
important. And there was also a question I wanted to ask you that just came up. So I've done videos. I've had Dr. Nadia Lopez on, and she talked about the significant toll that being on the job had on her mother and her daughter because they were observing what was happening to her. They were observing that the toll, they were observing she was in the hospital, all these other things they're observing. And so for you, and that's why I say to people too, that when you think about a toxic job, it's not just you that's being harmed, your family's being harmed too. So for me, my family was harmed. They saw me being injured and they felt helpless and hopeless. They didn't know how to help me. And so it brought up a lot of things for them as well. And so they were being harmed. So can you speak a little bit in terms of how your family may have been impacted by you while you were in that workplace as well, or those workplaces?
Yeah, my family was impacted by just not seeing me as much.
Mm,
Um, they had no energy.
yeah.
I didn't have, when I had time to myself, number one, I didn't know what to do. There were so many things I wanted to do that I had, choice overload, and I ended up doing nothing.
Uh-huh.
And I just didn't have the energy to go places,
Yeah.
to see people. And
Yeah.
I wasn't, I'm generally a happy person. I
Hmm.
smile a lot, and there weren't as many smiles.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was not particularly happy.
Yeah.
I wasn't my typical joyous self. I was
Hmm.
tired, I was
Hmm.
sad, I was
Hmm.
angry, I was irritable, and I just wasn't myself. So I wasn't fun
Yeah.
to interact with, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to interact.
I really appreciate you saying that because, you talked about the physical and emotional toll that made you not available, not accessible. The other
Mhm.
part I hope people can hear, because I experienced this too, is that start becoming somebody different than myself. Like, this is
Mhm.
not even me. Like, why am I talking this way? Why am I thinking this way? This is not even who I am. But that just shows you how insidious and how the toxicity gets into your system and it starts making you into somebody different, right? So, Javana, as
Mhm.
we're winding down, can you share with the audience? I heard a little bit. I want you to share a little bit more in terms of how you can help support Black women who are teachers and administrators. If they're watching this, they're like, I need help. How can you help them?
Mhm.
Help me. So how can you share that with them, please?
Yeah, certainly. Well, one of the things that I offer is a clarity conversation, and in that free clarity conversation, we talk about, because there's two categories of women that I work with. I work with women who are ready to go.
Yes.
And so for the women who are ready to go, I offer a Dream Abroad package where we go through several coaching sessions to first figure out, what is your vision? Where do
Mm,
you want to be? And we look at where do you want to be emotionally, mentally? We also look at where do you want to be physically. And we start looking at different parts of the world, start making those plans. We do resume and cover letter audits because what international schools are looking for is a little bit different than your regular resume or CV. And so we make sure that you're good there. We go through the details of looking at those contracts. We go through mindset stuff as well, because wherever you go, there you are. Yes. And the things that are making you want to move abroad, we've got to make sure that we work on your mindset so that you're not bringing that same thing with you, and that you have strategies, because it's not like you move abroad and then all of a sudden your desire, your propensity for overwork and doing too much, doing all the things just goes away. But I work with women so that they have strategies and they recognize when that's bubbling up. And so you can, poof, be gone with all of that nonsense, right?
You identify and address it. Yes.
Yeah. And then so for the women who are looking to improve their situation at home, I work with them to focus and flow. And one of my mantras is to do less and live more. I'm all about letting go of those things that are weighing you down. And so I work with women to assess what their values are, how they want to show up authentically. And then we come up with actionable steps to help them set boundaries, to come up with coping mechanisms, and to really craft their life, their job to be the way that they want to be, so that they can start anew.
Yeah.
Because you're never.
Yeah. So I'm going to put Javana's information in the description section, everybody. So just give me a little bit. So all that information will be available to you so you can access that. And Javana, I just want to share with everybody how I met Javana. So one day I was looking on Instagram or YouTube or something, some social media, and I saw a clip, and Javana was talking about me in the clip. And she said, I want to uplift Black women that I'm watching, and I just want to uplift. And I was like, this is like a surreal experience. Like, I'm just watching this video and she's talking about me. And so, Javana, I just want to say to you that, and to all the Black women who follow me, who comment, who really uplift me in the work that I'm doing, because it's not easy, always talking about very difficult topics, but I know that we need to talk about things that have happened to us and continue to happen to us. And so I'm uplifted and supported to continue to do this work. But Javana, I appreciate you for doing that, because I think that was at a moment, sometimes I get in my head and I start thinking, am I talking too much on YouTube? Am I doing too much? And then I see a video from you or I get a comment from another Black woman. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you. And Javana, thank you for doing that. And I really want to highlight that, because I want to emphasize that I know many of us have had some negative experiences with Black women. So I've done some videos about that. So all skin folk and kinfolk, if you want to check those out on my playlist. And then Javana, I recently did a video where I was asking people about, have you been bullied by another Black woman? Because it comes up so much. Even though I've done all these videos, people are like, talk about it. I need you to keep talking about it. So I am going to have a follow-up conversation about Black women who are engaging in workplace bullying behavior. So Dr. Leah Hollis, who was on last week, will be on again, I think it was February 25th. Then we're going to have a conversation about when another Black woman is the bully. So, but again, I just want to publicly say to Javana that I appreciate you uplifting me. It was such a total random surprise. I just, again, looked at it. I was like, oh my God, she's talking about me. So I appreciate that. So audience, I'm going to read the comments in the community, because I always want to give space to our community. And then we're going to start winding down, okay? So yes, they want you to be that stereotype and get uncomfortable when you are not. Very true. The stress can be a lot. It's terribly rough. Yes, the golden handcuffs can cause you to defer your dreams. Yes, I'm at the top of the pay scale as a teacher, but I can't imagine returning to my school next year. I hear you, sis. Please reach out to Javana. Okay. I also have resources for you that will be in the description section of this video as well. Something that might be helpful for you is to get your money right and leave the toxic job financial masterclass, which is recorded. Okay. So I hear you. Javana talked about this. I talked about this. Pay attention to that voice. If that voice is telling you, no, girl, this is not helpful for you. It's harming you. Please pay attention to that. Okay. And the golden handcuffs, real talk. Okay. So we all like being able to pay our bills and we all like financial security. However, don't allow that to override your health, your well-being. Let us not override that. And think about there's other ways for you to make money. We've talked about this today. So just be mindful of that. There's resources available for you so you don't feel stuck by the golden handcuffs. Okay. I see someone here who is in the masterclass. So someone here who was in the Get Your Money Right financial masterclass. So I gave her a name called the IEP Whisperer because she had an outstanding idea. Sis, I hope you go with that idea. Okay. So happy you are doing a live about the educational system. This is so needed. Yes. I had the eye twitch too. A very much needed conversation. I have a commonality with that sad wailing child. What does that say? Yeah, it shows you that so many kids are hurting and that in the schools, people are dealing with so much within the schools. So the expectation of doing educational outcomes, but then you have to take care of the mental health also. And it's overwhelming. It's absolutely overwhelming. So much trauma. The emotionality of teaching is through the roof. Yes. We feel the students have more rights than us. I've heard that many, many times. Love your journey. So there's appreciating that, Javana, sharing your journey. There's also politics around power and privilege. Some parents are aggressive towards Black teachers they have to deal with as authority figures. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, especially if you're working in a suburban area, there is this way that some parents will speak to you and their children too. It's almost like they look at you as the help, you know, and then if you are in a position of power over them, it infuriates them, and they will, personally attack you. Like you don't know what you're talking about. They will threaten to sue you. I worked in a district that even for simple discipline, people would show up with their attorneys.
Wow.
And so it's definitely, they will, if you're a Black woman, and sometimes as an administrator, you'll get that from your teachers. I had.
Well, you get what from the teachers? Please share.
Where if you're a Black woman in charge, I worked where I was principal. I had a Black woman who was an assistant principal, and then I had a white man who was also an assistant principal. And there were some teachers, other white men, who would go to that assistant principal in cases where they should have been coming to me as the head of the building. And then I had one who was just blatantly disrespectful. Luckily, he went on somewhere.
But so you're his boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there's that as well.
Yeah. And so, what advice would you give to Black teachers or administrators who are encountering that type of racism from parents, students, and their colleagues?
Yeah, one of the things that I would suggest is to get in community with other Black teachers, Black administrators, because it is helpful to know that you're not alone in your experience. And then aside from that, I would take a look at, I always recommend crucial conversations. And I recommend going through some training, going through reading that book, because honestly, it really does help you to deal with people who can be aggressive. Now, if someone is being truly aggressive, then you don't have to take that. And I told that to, my teachers, everyone. If a parent is on the phone, email, or if they're with you face to face, I've had to have my school resource officer escort parents out before, because they come in whooping, hollering, cursing, talking about what they're going to do. What you're not going to do is come in my campus and disrupt the environment. So officer can see this person out, and you can return when you're ready to talk.
Wow. So how do you take it? That sounds so stressful, right? So I just think about somebody cursing, screaming at you, I'm gonna sue you, I'm all that kind of stuff, right? And you're dealing with everything else on the campus. I'm thinking about all the cortisol that's rushing through your body. What do you do with that? How do you discharge that cortisol that's just in your body? I'm just curious. How do you do that, Javonna?
For me, it was, after an encounter, it is going back to my office and just taking a moment to just kind of, release, or it's walking around the building, or it's, as I mentioned before, finding a classroom where I know something good is happening. And going in and seeing kids engage, seeing, a great teacher who is, supporting her kids, seeing them learn, trying to infuse. And it's almost like you also build up a bank, right? And so you try to hang on to good emails. When a kid writes you a note, when they give you a card, like you have all of that stuff up that you can look at and just kind of, I'm doing a good job. Everything is not bad. Just kind of calm yourself down.
Reality test.
Yeah. So those are some strategies that I used.
Yeah. And I would also suggest that, if Black women are encountering that, particularly on a regular basis, and you talked about the vicarious traumatization, to really explore therapy as well, because that's a lot of stress and tension and trauma that you're holding within your body. Okay. So just get that support.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I'm sorry. I definitely support that. I wasn't in therapy then, but I was in therapy before. And I think that's also part of the reason why I was better able to handle all of the stress when I was in that position, because I did go through a period where I was in therapy. So just wanted to say, definitely support that.
Absolutely. And ladies, I'll put information about how to access a therapist, particularly a Black woman therapist. I'll put that in the description section as well. How beautiful and wholesome. I want to go now. Sounds beautiful. Oh my God. Horrible. Owned institution. Thank you, ladies. This is great. Thank you. It was so affirming and enlightening. Thank you for sharing your story. Grateful for this. Okay. So everyone, ladies. Okay. I'm going to put Javonna's information in the description section. So please check her out. If you're a Black woman, you're a teacher, you're a school administrator, and you want to explore possible options. Like you said, you are ready. You're like, I want to be done with this. I can imagine, as someone said in the chat, I don't want to go back into the school year. If that's you, check out Javonna. Also, if you're a Black woman and you're stuck of a job and you want to get out, but you're scared about finances, I have the replay available for the Get Your Money Right and Leave the Toxic Job Financial Masterclass for Black women. It is a replay because I heard Black women say they didn't want to go into anything live with other people because they had fears that people would try to find out they're trying to leave, like a plantation. So this is all recorded. It's a collaboration between me and Dr. Roche Brown. Dr. Roche Brown is a clinical psychologist like me, so licensed clinical psychologist, and she's a financial psychologist. So I work with her to get my money right so I can resign. Okay, so check out the replay. And then again, I'll put Javonna's information description section. So any last words, Javonna, as we're going to sign off soon? Any last words you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, last words are that you deserve to be happy in your job, and that you also you're ready. Like, listen to that voice, give credence to that voice, and do the thing that your heart, that your soul is telling you that you want to do.
Yes. And I co-sign with that. And the sense that we deserve better, and pay attention to what your intuition is saying. Don't lie to yourself. And know, Black women, that we have resources available. We have seen way too many examples of Black women being harmed in workplaces. We've seen way too many examples when a period ran out of collective grief. Okay. Be mindful of how the job is impacting you. Look at those resources. I have some available in the description section. Please check out those resources, get the support you need, and know you deserve better. Okay. So as I'm signing off, please give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you could share this video with at least 2 other Black women, at least 2, okay, maybe more, but just 2, at least 2. And then if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Lifting Us We Climb Consulting Wellness Services. Javonna, you have a YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's my name, Javonna MaeRhys. So I'm Javonna MaeRhys on YouTube, Instagram, all the socials. But yeah, definitely check out my YouTube channel.
Yes. And I'll put all the description section. So make sure you follow both of us. Okay. And again, share this video with at least 2 other Black women. I'm signing off, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.